Hey y'all, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Jessica Skylar Baldwin, and I'm here working with Dr. Zhang and Miss Becky Cherry. We are looking at using heat units to determine total nut size growth and production, as well as looking into nitrogen and carbohydrate analysis of leaves and branches. So this week was pretty simple. I started the week by grinding samples down at Perkins, which is just our leaf samples. They're dried completely out, and then we crush them up and put them in the grinder, and then they get put into jars, which is what y'all saw last week. Once I was done grinding the samples, we put them into another dryer here, and they're kept at 80 degrees Celsius, which is roughly 176 degrees Fahrenheit. From there, I got to work with the balance this week. There's a square piece of tinfoil that is folded, and it gets put into this little holding case right here, and then you zero it out, and then I weigh out the samples. Try to keep it around 0.2 with little variance, just so the Nico can handle it. Ignore the pictures. I was just getting pictures of showing what it is. So these aren't balanced at all. As you can see, that's a negative. Whatever. But that's how we put it in. We use a tiny little scupula, and it holds roughly about 0.03 grams per each scoop. So it takes a little while to get all the sample in there. From there, I have to roll it up into what looks like a little firework popper. And you have to be really careful, because if you get it too big, the Lico will not take it. It'll just smash the sample, and you have to redo it. And so if you're working with a little amount of sample, it's really hard. You have to make sure you get it right the first time. This is the computer that we have set up to the Lico. It runs all of our data analysis. All we have to do is put in the name, and it tracks everything. It shows us all the nitrogen analysis. These are the holders that we put the samples in. Each one has, you can't really see it, but this has A, B, C, D, and E, and then 1 through 10. It's really important to know that number 10 is just a duplicate of whichever one of these that we chose. I personally like to do 6 because it's roughly in the middle. So it's a direct sample. This is 6, so these two are the same. And that way it's a way for us to check ourselves and make sure that the Lico is running correctly. This is where we write down each exact measurement or weight of the sample. And at the end of the, when you run a duplicate, so number 10, you have to go in and you have to run more checks. We use wheat, orchard samples, and NIST to make sure we have our exact numbers for that. And it has to be within 0.003 of that original sample. And if it's not, then we have to go through, we have to run 2 leak tests, 1 for helium, 1 for oxygen, and if everything's working correctly there, we move forward and we run blanks to make sure that the machine is working properly, and if it stays within range, then we're good to go and move on from there. Other than that, I cleaned the lab a lot this week. That's what I spent this morning doing. I wiped down all the tables, swept, anything else Ms. Becky needed me to do, and that's about it for this week. Does anybody have any questions?
How much longer are you collecting samples and all this stuff?
So I'll be collecting, I will go collect the day before we leave, and then they will do all the analysis for that. But this is a 3-year project, so this will continue on throughout the winter and then to next summer and the year after that. So it'll continue on for a little while.
Like every single week?
For Perkins, so we collect in 7 locations. So we have Perkins, Skytook, Cleveland, Cherokee, Idabel, McMillan, and Burneyville. And for the north and south orchards, we collect every 2 weeks, and we usually try to go on a Tuesday and a Thursday. We only collect branch samples once a month, so only on one of the 2 trips we take in the month. We collect nut samples every time we go, and then in Perkins we collect nut samples every week, and then we still collect the branch samples once a month.
So are you only looking at one cultivar for pawns or multiple?
We're looking specifically into Pawnee and Kansas, just because they tend to have the least variation among each plant. So that's what we chose. We didn't want to go with the native cultivars because you can see a lot of variation. Even say there's a plant in that corner of the room, then there's another one right here. They're not going to have any similarities more than likely. You could have a nut on one that's this size, and then over here you have one that's like this little. So we wanted to get something that had a set standard for the most part. Are there any other questions?
What's the goal for the work? What are you trying to learn? What are you trying to improve?
So in the state of Oklahoma, we have seen a really big drop in nut production. I think what Dr. Zhang told me was that 4 years ago it was at about 15 million pounds of pecans, and then this past year we only got about 9 million. And so specifically with the nitrogen and carbohydrate measurements, what we're trying to do is see if there's a drop in the total contents of either nitrogen or carbohydrates. So what we do is we take 3 different locations of branch samples. We have a current season, 1 year growth, and then 2 year old growth, and we measure each of those separately, and we're going to compare them to see, okay, 3 years ago we had this amount, but this year we're only getting this amount. Is this what's causing the drop in total production, or is there something deeper that we need to look into? And then with the heat units, what we're trying to do is, so we have the mesonet here in Oklahoma, and what we're trying to do is be able to put heat units in comparison to total pecan size and total yield. That way a farmer can look in and say, okay, I've had this many heat units. This is about how many, what I can expect for production this year. And also what we're doing with that as well is we've been cutting open pecans every single week and looking to see when it comes out of the water stage and like when we first start seeing embryos. That way farmers know, okay, I can start spraying this week. All right, I need to shake here. I can expect a drop here. And just kind of, get them more familiar with the crops. Even if they've been doing this 20, 40 years, it just helps get them more familiar with crops, and especially with new things coming out.
So nitrogen is usually a driver for growth, but if there was another nutrient that you could also sample, what would that be?
I'm not too sure. I know that we are looking at, or next year they're going to start looking at zinc absorption to see what's going on with that, and seeing if farmers if we need to look into different ways of applying it instead of just foliar or into the soil itself, seeing if there's other things that we can do with that, but I'm not too sure other than that.
Zinc was the answer. All right.
Any other questions? All right, thank y'all so much.